This is the Internet Court of Truth and Lies. In this platform, if you've got something that you think is the truth or you think is a lie and you wonder whether other people agree with you, you can take it to a trial of up to 8 people and you dissect whether or not you think it's the truth or a lie. Each of the jurors answers the same 8 questions. The plaintiff, the person who's bringing the suspicion to the court, finds something out, some way of viewing the thing that he's judging or he or she's judging that he didn't expect. What everybody sees is that no two people really see the world the same way. It's really interesting to see how people differ. And it just is very nice. What we do know is that if you have as many as 8 jurors or a few people to dialogue with in this way, you usually can find out pretty quickly whether or not the thing that you thought was true probably is true, or the thing you thought was a lie probably is a lie. That's what this whole thing's about. Today, I'm the plaintiff on a case called You Asked for It. And ASK is an acronym for a tool or a method that's taught in business schools or in large corporations to managers on how to trust what they're hearing from either somebody in the company or somebody outside of the company. ASK stands for Affiliation, Status, and Knowledge. Affiliation says find out who or what their affiliation is to know whether I'm going to trust them by what they say. Status is the status within that affiliation. So if they are a government official, are they the governor or are they a policeman? Knowledge is the objective of the whole thing, is to either find out whether they're telling the truth or whether they're deceiving you. You want to learn the truth. You want to know that someone's trying to deceive you so that you know that it's not the truth. You're not going to learn it as the truth. And the human brain is very good at this. All brains and all animals, all neural systems are basically truth engines. We know this. They're truth engines of a certain kind that involve massively parallel processing. So between your ears, there's 100 billion neurons, which is as many stars as in the Milky Way. And each neuron has about 3,000 connections with other neurons. So there are literally trillions of compute points, any number of which, like millions, can be active on a given sentence or a given communication. It's all in parallel. It's essentially real time. And it's unbelievable what this computation is and how good we are at keeping distinct throughout our lives what's true and what's not true. It's amazing that we can keep as much knowledge separated that way as we actually do. ASK, it turns out to be a fundamental mechanism. This trial is precisely about this fundamental mechanism. The argument is that whenever you have a communication with anybody, one of the things that happens in parallel is you are evaluating that person's affiliation, status within the affiliation, and the knowledge that this person has in order to decide whether or not what he's saying is true or might be a deceit. The argument is that everybody keeps track of it for every communication. This is a very strong statement. This says that everybody keeps track of this asks for every communication they have with another human being, which is crazy. We have examples in natural language of people doing this kind of parallel evaluation that goes on for every communication. And one of the interesting places in natural language, which is not so much in English, but in a lot of other languages, is knowing the gender of a noun, knowing whether a noun is a feminine or a masculine noun. For those of you who've learned other languages that have that distinction, like el and la in Spanish, you realize that it's very easy to learn that distinction. And it's because your brain is keeping track of such things. In English, we don't have it very much. We have a little bit of that, but in other languages, it occurs several times in a sentence that distinction is being made. So that's an example of this kind of parallel computation that goes on. Ask has been around for a long time, this whole idea of ask. Nobody that I know of knows where it came from. It has been in management tools forever. I've known people who've known about it for many years. That's what this trial is about. I'm claiming is the truth, is that in any human cognitive computation about whether someone is telling the truth or a lie, affiliation, status, and knowledge in that conditional order are established. In other words, your brain is establishing affiliation so that it can then establish a status within that affiliation. Within that affiliation and that status, does this person have the knowledge that he needs to have to be telling you the truth? Or is this something that he may not have that kind of knowledge, and so he may not be telling you the truth? So the argument is that this is one of these parallel filters like the masculine feminine thing that goes on with every communication. What I want to do is give you all my verdict on this statement. What I claim is true is that ask goes on in every communication that you have, because your brain is a truth engine. I've created a little Google Doc. This text is now in the video that's attached to the trials. It's the same text. But basically, this summarizes what I just said. The brain is a truth engine. All neural systems in all animals are truth engines. But humans are unique in brain-to-brain communication through their speech organ in the brain. In other words, there's the brain-to-brain communication that takes place with humans is unique in the animal kingdom because it does such a good job of communicating what's in one brain to another brain. There are lots of things that we can communicate that animals just can't communicate among themselves in the same species. The internal brain context for every communication with others predicates these things that I've been talking about, like masculine, feminine is a predication. The affiliation is a predication on the communication. Status is a predication on the affiliation and the communication. Knowledge is a predication on the communication within that status and affiliation. Our brains keep track of this stuff. So we will learn from things that we believe are the truth. If we think that something is a deceit, we will not learn from it. We can learn from a little bit from it. It can taint something just by experiencing it. But the brain is very good at keeping straight what's true about the world versus what's not true about the world for you. These are just predications. The default predications for every speech act are things like, this is the most certain kind of truth because I can perceive it by myself. This means that if you see it with your own eyes, hear it with your own ears, it's true. and that you saw it, that it's there, it's real, so forth and so on. This guy, Rene Descartes, added to that in 1600 or so. And he said, well, that's not exactly right because your brain could fool itself. And he said, what you've got to determine is if you can observe something directly, see if somebody else can observe the same thing directly. And if they can observe the same thing directly too, and you both agree that you've seen the same thing, then it pretty much proves the reality of reality, and it proves what's true. So Descartes is known as the father of rules of evidence in law. He's known the father of the age of reason. He's known as the father of cognitive science. And he's known as the father of modern science. It all comes from this little idea that direct empirical observation is truth. It's the best form of truth. But the only way you can be sure that you're perceiving the truth is if somebody else perceives it too. That will confirm it, because that both confirms that reality exists and it confirms that what you perceive as being real exists as true. Or, by the way, you could directly perceive deceits too. So you can truth that something is a deceit. Next levels, this is true because I think it's true. This is Descartes too. And he basically says, I think, therefore I am, because if you think something's true, you may be making it true if you convince somebody else of it. This is true because I trust the speaker. This is where the affiliation status of knowledge comes in. We know that you can't observe everything, and you can't apply logical deduction to what you're observed to know things are true with absolute certainty. While the brain can do logical computations, and the brain can do mathematics, and the brain can do all forms of logical proofs, it doesn't have time to do it in life. Most of the time, you have to trust what somebody else says for getting more of the truth of reality inside of your head. The argument is that affiliation, status, and knowledge play a pivotal role in that. So for my verdicts, I said, is it the truth? I said, yes, this is a prediction of the science. It comes from theology, the study of lies. To my knowledge, there is no published experiments that test this stuff. There may have been. This thing goes back so many years that it's possible that it was tested in Germany in 1880, and I just don't know. But it can be tested. What's interesting about this thing is it can be tested to see if affiliation, status, and knowledge are pivotal in every communication. Is it the whole truth? I said yes, and I just think it's an amazingly piece of the whole truth. It's stunning. Once you say, is it always there? And then you try to find a place where it isn't, and you really can't find a place that it isn't, that you didn't trump up, as they say. Is it nothing but the truth? The answer is yes. It's posed as the truth that can be tested and tested to see if human brain processes A, S, and K in order, and therefore often ignores good reasoning or believes liars, which is interesting. So if somebody has the right affiliation and status and appears to have the right knowledge, you may believe him, and he may be lying to you, in which case you did do those tests and you just got fooled. What's the deceit? My argument is there's no deceit because I think this thing can be tested. I'd love to see somebody actually do the tests. If somebody wants to know how someday, I could tell them, but I think any experimental psychologist could tell them the same thing. Is the deceit or truth intended? My argument is yes. It took me a while to come to the conclusion that this claim is correct. Originally, when I first heard about ask, I thought it was just another one of the little things that they would teach you in corporate management. The more I got to thinking about it, the more I realized, oh, this is special. What's the motivation behind the truth or lie? That's to be informative. What's the social acceptability? Again, good science is always acceptable as long as no one is hurt by the experiments. What label would improve the social acceptability of the truth or the lie? I said this is true. And the reason I said this is true is it did take me a while to recognize that this ask rule was true. When I first heard about it, I didn't know that it was true. I think a label that says this is true would be helpful because it might motivate people to think a little bit harder about it. That's my verdict. What I'd like to do is get 30, 40 seconds from each of the jurors on their verdicts. Juror one.
Yes, I can't argue with the expert. And this sounds like the whole truth. And like you said, it hasn't been fully tested. But I'm wondering if this three pillars is actually the brain considering the source. Before they make up their mind, they're considering the source of the information. And
that's what's being said. What's being said is that
yes,
it's a predication. And so you're considering the communication from the source. By the way, you'll also, if you're the source and you don't know the person, you may well tell the person first thing what your affiliation status and knowledge is, just so he knows who he's talking to.
so
Happens
anybody
all
can
the
make that
time.
up, though, right?
They can make it up, but you see this on TV all the time when people are interviewed. The first thing you hear is their affiliation and status. When
That's
they
right.
interview, that's exactly what's going on. And so that's more evidence that this is for every communication. And it always is what people use to establish whether or not they're going to believe what this guy says.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so that's how that works. Juror two.
That's me. I agree with you. The only thing it makes me think about, I always gave people the benefit of the doubt until the last couple of years, and now people lie just to lie. And I don't know if I was naive or gullible, but now I don't trust people. I don't trust what people are saying as much as I did because there's so much lying going on on social media, and it carries like wildfire when somebody tells a lie.
One of the things that turns out to be really interesting is everybody has many affiliations. For example, to another family member, my affiliation is I'm in your family. That's an affiliation to them. And they may not care what I do for a living. They just care that I'm their cousin. Anybody can have multiple affiliations. The affiliations are established for a specific communication, but it'll get established for that communication in order to evaluate whether or not to believe the person. One of the things I think is happening today is there's this affiliation that's sadly becoming rampant, which is that this person is just a social media person. Their affiliation and status is not sufficient to get you to the point where, and it may have been 10 years ago or 20 years ago, that same affiliation and status may have led you to the belief from experience that a person with that affiliation and status is to be believed. But now we've got enough instances of people violating the perceived affiliation and status and lying that it breaks that whole thing, but it doesn't mean you're not doing it. Using juror three.
That would be me. This trial, this one, I really like this one because of the fact that the people that I am surrounded by, literally in my day-to-day life now, since I've had to move and things, I see this. I see it. And I'm glad that you did this today, because now I know for sure that some of the things that I'm seeing, and I'm calling these people out on them, you need to tell me the truth because I know you're lying. And they're like, what are you, that Natasha lady off of Poker Face or something? And I'm like, no, but I know these things. And it's really frustrating when you have to deal with those type of people. And I really liked it because I just really liked it because
Yeah,
it
this is
helps
one
me
of
be
these
able
things that
to.
I first heard about this ass thing probably 15 years ago or something. Like my whole life I had not heard about it before. And then I discovered it was being taught. I think in some business school classes they may talk about ask. I think I've heard that. The reason you're taught it is to understand how to deal with customers. If your company has to know what it needs to do next
I feel
with
like it comes into play
clients.
with us here in this court also, because of I feel like it really plays a part because us as a group, it's we have to know certain things in order to help truth court run. Yeah,
Exactly
I
right.
really
Sounds
liking
good.
this one.
Juror 4.
That's me, Bob.
David,
Yeah, I like this ask thing. Yeah, it makes so much of sense, especially with sensitive or controversial topics, religion and politics. Yeah, like it makes complete sense. Yeah, I totally agree with what you've said. Yeah, I'd like to test it myself in my own personal life.
the one that I found most amusing was I asked myself, Pittsburgh for years had the only Hindu temple in North America, believe it or not. And so I met some holy men, okay, who were fluent in English, but they were from India and so forth and so on. I had this overwhelming feeling that because they were Hindu holy man, Hindi, whatever they call it, holy men,
Yogi, something. Yeah,
these were not, I don't know enough about any of this stuff to
yeah.
know what a yogi, anyway, and I had conversations with these guys because I had a friend of mine had who's Indian, had his daughter at CMU, and he came with his family and family from India to Pittsburgh to get married in the Hindu temple. Okay. So I had some interactions, and then that happened over a period of time. I think there may be another Hindu temple somewhere in North America, but at the time, this was the only one. So it was amazing how I had this overwhelming impression that this guy would never, ever deceive me. And he wouldn't say much, but he wouldn't deceive me either. Which is a really interesting, for me, it was an interesting thing. And I'll never forget it because I think I was primed because he was a holy man to think that he would be somebody who would be telling the truth. Anyway, it was an interesting thing, but that had to do with his affiliation and his status, right? He had the yellow robe and all that stuff.
Yeah, Juror 5 is me.
Yep.
Yeah, I read this. Yeah, I had to say, especially the thing about status, which has got a special. I've been interested in this for a while. So the way I saw it, though, affiliation is not so much your status in the affiliation, because how, if you're an outsider, how can you possibly judge that? The affiliation implies an aggregated belief, which is very strong, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a group that is all thinking one way, and that gives very similar to the idea.
Or it may be that in that group, a status level in the group will tell you whether or not the person is telling you the truth or not.
Right, but you have to be very familiar with the way the group is laid out and everything in order to understand that, don't you? Whereas if you just take it en bloc, that there exists this group and therefore this has a value because there are lots of people who are thinking the same way. And then, but social status is important, which it implies that the higher the status you have, the more you can lie.
Yes,
And in fact,
the more effective
the
you'll
King of
be at
England can
lying.
lie, as much as he wants, and everybody has to take it.
So this is brainwashing 101.
Yeah.
What you just described is brainwashing 101.
Yeah.
So you convince somebody that you have the affiliation and the right status, and they will believe you. That's the beginning of getting them completely brainwashed.
Sure.
By you.
But
Yep.
the other thing, the third arm to this knowledge, of course, is actually the least important of all of these.
Isn't it? Isn't it amazing?
What you know about is not enough, often not enough to demolish the lie or to make yourself believe it. It's interesting.
That's right. It
All these,
really is.
The social complicity that's involved in the affiliation, the status elements of this is just so strong.
Yeah, it really is. And I think this is literally evolved as the way it works. How true the brain determines truth is first level is literally trust. Do I trust whatever I'm seeing or being communicated to me? Trust the agent of that communication. And to get that, you look at the affiliation. What is this? What is communicating to me?
Yeah.
Their status. And I'm still say status within it, but there is a good notion of overall status, which is, I don't exactly know how to do status without affiliation.
No,
But it
that's
may
right.
be
Yeah.
that you don't really know the affiliation, but you do know the status.
Yeah. And when you think of Fauci, you think of the strength of the groups of people that he belongs to, about the knowledge that he's supposed to know.
What convinced me about Fauci was his work ethic, which was so clear. The fact that the community respected him, the community he came from respected him so highly. It came from this work ethic. He was the reviewer of all these technical papers. And that really doesn't happen unless the community really respects you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very difficult to be that kind of a person. That's a hard job. That means he's working 12 hours a day, every day.
Yeah.
So it's
I
crazy.
have something to add, Bob. Recently, on one of the boards I serve on, the director omitted giving me the information, and I called a meeting and I said, I hope you realize that's lying for you to deliberately not tell me something, and I don't appreciate it. And I resigned over it.
Yeah.
Because how can we make changes for people with disabilities when you got the head person lying?
Yeah.
I took a stand, but lying by omission played me along for a year. And then we got ready to vote who's getting the money, and it blew up because she had lied to me all along and was giving the money to somebody I felt shouldn't get it. They're in another state.
Yep.
So I just wanted to say,
Yeah, I think I think that if the person is acting with a certain affiliation and a certain status, and they omit things that they should be saying, knowing that the people are going to trust them, then that's really bad lying. Because they shouldn't be doing that. They should be making sure that everybody understands that if there's something people need to understand, something that may be bad news, they should make sure that people understand that, or they're going to lose those people, because those people get it's a terrible way of lying, is by not saying something and you have the status and the
and she
it
was
should really
younger
require
than
you to say it.
and that added insult to injury. You know what I'm saying? Being
Yeah.
younger than me and me being an elder. Plus, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I have the experience and she doesn't. She's new. And we're supposed to be advising them. I was treasurer of that place. I'm like, I'm supposed to advise you on where the money goes. You're just not even listening. It was what's nepotism, where they're like bringing everybody on the board that they're coworkers they've worked with in the past or their friends. Nepotism, is that what that's called?
Yeah.
To be sitting there, I expect honesty on any board I serve on and transparency. So I was shocked, and that's why I thought it reminded me of what you guys were talking about here.
Yeah, and I think this is another reason they teach this in the management. So I went through those courses at Seagate when I was at Seagate because I was up for management and they force you to take these courses. And that's another reason that they want you to take these courses is so that you understand that you are perceived as having this status and you have certain responsibilities with that status to be truthful, fully truthful to
Head
people.
of the agency, and what
Or the corporation cannot survive because people will give up on the management.
I expect failure. That's why I'm like, I'm not going down with this shit because my name's on this as treasurer. I'm out because
Yeah.
I'm seeing too many red flags. And I probably should have reported her to the governor because that's a governor's appointed position. But I
Yeah.
didn't because I'm tired of fighting people. It's you don't deserve me. I'm out of here.
So I've done the same thing, which is I've walked out of situations that and never looked back because of the people, and they are doing exactly the same that same sort of thing, which is I'll watch them as they lie to people that I would never lie to with their status because it's terrible. And I've walked out of situations like
I
that.
appreciate that because that's hurtful.
It's really unbelievably dangerous because what you're doing is you're building distrust into the system, and once the trust is gone, your source of truth gets really limited. Juror 6.
Good afternoon, everyone. In my opinion, research
Yes.
shows that lying is a common behavior often motivated by self-protection, social harmony, or personal gain. Feels that children start lying as early as the age of 3. Thank you.
Thank you. So did you say age of 3?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did you say about the age of 3? I'm just sort of curious. I missed it.
That children start lying as early
Oh,
as
children
the age
start
of
lying.
3.
Oh no, they start lying when they're 3 months old.
I cannot wait to tell my friend that.
You're talking to somebody who took the courses, developmental psychology.
I'm sorry, I have that for a moment because my friend, he has this thing. He says, all I do is work and I lie. It's something his Meemaw had said to him a lot when he was a kid. So I'm getting good with that when I talk to him here in just a little bit.
When they're around 4, they use the hide your face thing. That's a form
What are
of
you talking about?
lying.
My something to do it at age 1. My daughter was bad at that. She come out being horrible. I swear she did. My kid did.
Yeah, you might be actually right. I think I might have the age of 4 thing mixed up with another one. The other one that I'm thinking that was the right one was the kid saying you're lying. I think that's the one
Lord.
at 4, and this one is earlier than that, but I can't remember.
Bob, you might be onto something with that because with the autism spectrum, my grandson, my oldest grandson, he's 3 almost. They're saying he's autistic, but I'm wondering if the government is not making these children that way so they can't tell us you're lying or they can't pick out these things. You
Yeah,
know?
I have a problem with how people are using the term autism and autistic.
Yeah.
It's terribly misused, and
And
there's
it's scary.
there's
Autism is a scary disorder.
there's profound autism, which is nothing like what people are describing. Profound autism is really deadly. Okay, it's just terrible.
Is that the nonverbal one?
I'm sorry.
Is that the nonverbal one? The one you're talking
So it'll manifest itself partly. You can be nonverbal. You can also be very verbal, but it's a disconnection with reality that's very self-destructive, and they don't know it and they're unable to learn it.
My grandson, my daughter, and I've noticed it some, he'll get like that, but if he gets on a call with me, possibly, he knows who I am and he'll snap out of it a little bit. that he's nonverbal. He is saying some things, but yeah.
Yeah, you never know
Wow.
what's going on in his mind. You have to bear with him for a while and get to the point where
Yeah.
you're following what he's doing. Because sometimes people will develop strategies. Socialization is a learned process. People, as they're growing up, will experiment with it. And some people will experiment for several years with the same maladaptive. Really don't like the fact that people are overusing the term autism because it really did mean something. This is another case. There's a lot of this stuff that's just normal growing up. And
Yeah. Yeah, my youngest grandson though, he's 2. They're a year apart. My daughter has noticed that Taylor, my oldest one, will open up to Daniel some, and she's seeing that he communicates with him in different ways, but it's not 100% verbally.
that's interesting.
I'm gonna look. That's gonna be my next trial.
Yeah, it might be there may be an overly honest syndrome that I've never actually thought about that.
Got me killed just a while back in
So
July.
there is a form of schizophrenia that does that.
What? Oh,
Yeah, so there is a certain symptomatic form of schizophrenia where the person blasts out with statements that are true, that are completely wrong for the situation he's sitting in. The one that I remember, which was not a schizophrenia, was this. I was teaching a class of 500 students or something at Rutgers, and there was this girl, and she was overweight, and she was blonde hair, blue eyes, and she would blurt out statements loudly in a lecture with 500 people in the room. She would do it pretty much constantly. And it turned out that she was a purebred Eskimo,
what?
an albino Eskimo that had grown up in northern Canada. And
You'd never see them in the snow.
She had been kept under plywood in a ditch until she was 13 years old.
What?
Oh no.
God.
And then she was picked out by a priest, the Jesuit priest that had come to that Eskimo village, and he found her.
Oh.
She spoke no English, she spoke no language at all. So he taught her English. She didn't know Eskimo either because she had never been around people. She'd had this really hard life, but he wound up marrying her, which is the reason that she was at Rutgers. He got her into the classes. She was very smart. She was really smart. But it was
sounds like she's very traumatized though.
No, she was always happy, and when she was disrupting the classes, she didn't know she was doing it. She was just disconnected from reality. And
Did she? Was it Tourette's?
I think it's hard to know what a person who was buried in a ditch underneath a piece of plywood for until you're 13 years old and with no human contact is going to turn into. I actually met with her and met with her husband because I had to get her to shut up in the class. And our first levels, I was trying to find out why she was talking like she talked. Not that she wasn't. She would just blurt out things, but it was disrupting the class all the time.
Stream of consciousness sort of thing.
Yeah, a stream of consciousness, and this idea that you raise your hand, it just doesn't happen. She just didn't know that. But she had in learning English, she had turned into a poet, and she won a national Canadian contest for a poem she wrote when she was like 18 or 19. By the way, when she was sitting in the class where everybody else was 18 years old, she was 28.
Oh, wow.
Canada gave her some special education, but she was with her husband, so she came to Rutgers.
Oh, wow. I'm interested in that because of the trauma, everything that she went through and how she overcame it. So
yeah, I don't think she knew it as trauma. It was all normal to her, and that the class was normal. She just didn't know what a class was.
she didn't get to go to school or anything. So
Right. So her school was very different than anybody else's school because they were getting her out of this situation. And so it was all person to person. There was no regular classes or anything for her.
we could go all kinds off the subject here.
Yeah. So this is good. But yeah, so there's all kinds of people who are not connected to reality that are not really sick. They just have a different experience. And she was the most dramatic case of that I've ever seen. Yeah. So Juror 7?
Yeah, I pretty much agreed with you on this, especially when it comes to the affiliation section of the ask concept, since we tend to trust family and friends more than we trust strangers when it comes to believing information. But then again, it also depends on the type of relationship you have with those people, because in my case, in personal experience, there's a lot of family and a select few friends that I wouldn't trust when it comes to the lies that spew out of their mouth. It's actually like case to case basis on who you can trust when it comes to the truth and deceit.
That's what's being said here is that the human brain is capable of doing this in parallel, but it's evaluating these things for every communication. It's stunning that the human brain can do this in parallel to everything else it's doing, but it appears to be doing it. What you're experiencing is just exactly what I think most of us experience. I definitely have people that I won't trust a word that they say. This is I really think this is from a computational cognitive science perspective. This whole thing about ask is an extremely important thing in terms of understanding how brains compute. Juror 8.
Hi guys. Okay, so for me, this ask theory thing that we do, we actually study this in business studies. I work for a bank. So obviously we had to study this to make sure that you can see when a client is actually lying to you, especially when you give them their home loans and you ask them about the expenses, you can see, okay, this client is lying or he's telling the truth. So we are trained with this ask method. And there was another consultant that I actually trained in being a teller at the bank. And he was so smooth with his mouth and everything. And then after he was trained, after 6 months, he started stealing from clients. And you would not believe, I thought it's an honest guy. And then the ask method didn't even work because he was so smooth. He worked around that to make sure that you trust him. But in actual fact, he was stealing. So when the bank caught him, obviously because I trained him,
It's 20 hours.
I was now questioned. I was questioned. Are you telling the truth? Did you train him to steal? So I also had to go through the whole thing where they had to investigate and all of those things. So up until today, I don't trust people very easily because of that.
Yeah, so you've just confirmed that I was not lying when I said that they teach people in corporations about ask.
They do in law enforcement also, Bob.
In law enforcement, I think this has been around for a long time.
But your affiliation status was so overwhelming, we had to believe it anyway.
Yeah. The reason I say law enforcement is because the cases that I work on, missing person cases, crime victims, I have to be able to know who is telling the truth and who isn't in many situations. And I've been able to help actually get a lot of leads on some cases due to me being able to know how to
figure it out.
See that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some people are more gifted than others in figuring it out. By the way, that is an area there is published literature. So there's for that sort of gift or whatever you want to call it. There is published literature on that. Generally, it's in the experimental social psychology area, but I do happen to know that there's published literature on that particular thing. I think the literature exists to see if you could test for it. for that, so that if you were going to hire an employee and you wanted them to be very good at that, that they could take a test, or inside of a test, there'd be questions that they could answer that would indicate that they're very good at that. I think that's how I know that there's some published literature on this.
There is a group of, they're actually a group of psychics. I call them intuitive, spirit-led detectives, honestly. But they are out of Arizona. It's called the Find Me Group. And they actually, I actually got an invite to be a part of it. And I really thought about it and I was like, man, I can't do this. I just can't, because I get haunted by stuff very easily whenever I work these cases and stuff. And but they see it is very true that people are very
Well, some people are good
gifted.
at it for different reasons, yeah. And
Yeah,
so some people are good at it because they do it.
I helped locate someone in the UK actually on a case a few years ago. I knew exactly where they would find her at, and I told them, and they actually went and looked, and that's where she was located at. And I'm like, I quit. I'm not doing no more cases.
You should have upped your fees.
I don't get paid for doing what I do, though. So yeah, I do it because I'm passionate about helping others and stuff. I do get donations every once in a while, but I haven't done any trials in probably a good minute. My life's been too crazy. Yeah.
This sounds good. Next week, we're going to retry the semantic defense. I'm actually talking to Rand Waltzman. Rand is the guy who's published this compendium of all the ways that people trick other people. He's been in the intelligence agencies. So we'll see y'all next week. Sounds good. I'll see y'all.
Bye.
Good. Bye, everyone.
Bye.